Estelle Sylvia Pankhurst, born on the 5th of May 1882, and died on the 27th of September 1960, was an English campaigner for the suffrage and suffragette movement, a socialist and later a prominent left communist and activist in the cause of anti-fascism and the International Auxiliary Language Movement. She spent much of her later life campaigning on behalf of Ethiopia, where she eventually settled. In 1906, Sylvia Pankhurst started to work full-time for the Women's Social and Political Union, WSPU, with her sister Christabel and their mother. She devised the WSPU logo and various leaflets, banners, and posters as well as the decoration of its meeting halls. In 1907 she toured industrial towns in England and Scotland, painting portraits of working-class women in their working environments. She spent time in Leicester where she was welcomed by Alice Hawkins, who she knew through the Independent Labour Party. They were soon joined by Mary Gawthorpe and they established a WSPU presence in Leicester. In contrast to Emmeline and Christabel, Sylvia retained an affiliation with the labor movement and concentrated her activity on local campaigning. She and Amy Bull founded the East London Federation of the WSPU. Pankhurst also contributed articles to the WSPU's newspaper, Votes for Women, and, in 1911, she published a propagandist history of the WSPU's campaign, The Suffragette, the history of the women's militant suffrage movement. On November 1, 1913, Pankhurst spoke at the Albert Hall in support of the Dublin workers who had recently gone on strike in order to promote a more humane society. After this incident, Pankhurst's relationship with her family became very strained because of Pankhurst's involvement with the Labour Party. Pankhurst's family believed that her aligning with the Labour Party went against WSPU identification of being independent. For this reason her sister Christabel removed Sylvia from their union because of a belief that she was tarnishing their name. Like many suffragists, she spent time in prison, being arrested 15 times while campaigning for the rights of women. Pankhurst was age 24 when she went to prison for the first time. During the period between February 1913 and July 1914, Pankhurst was arrested 8 times, each time being repeatedly force-fed. She gave several accounts of her experience of force-feeding and time in prison. One such account was written for McClure's Magazine, a popular American periodical, in 1913. Sylvia was given a Hunger Strike Medal for Valor by the WSPU. By 1914, Pankhurst had many disagreements with the route the WSPU was taking, that is, campaigning by direct action without threat to life. It had become independent of any political party, but she wanted it to become an explicitly socialist organization tackling wider issues than women's suffrage, and aligned with the Independent Labour Party. She had a close personal relationship with the Labour politician Keir Hardie. On November 1, 1913, Pankhurst showed her support in the Dublin lockout and spoke at a meeting in London. The members of the WSPU, particularly her sister Christabel, did not agree with her actions, and consequently expelled her from the Union. Her expulsion led to her founding of the East London Federation of Suffragettes in 1914, which over the years evolved politically and changed its name accordingly, first to the Women's Suffrage Federation and then to the Workers' Socialist Federation. She founded the newspaper of the WSF, Women's Dreadnought, and employed Mary Phillips to write for it. This subsequently became the Workers' Dreadnought. The Federation campaigned against the First World War, and some of its members hid conscientious objectors from the police. The WSF, Workers' Socialist Federation, continued to move towards left-wing politics and hosted the inaugural meeting of the Communist Party, BSDI. Workers' Dreadnought published Sylvia Pankhurst a constitution for British Soviets to coincide with this meeting. In this article she highlighted the potential role of what she called household Soviets in order that mothers and those who are organizers of the family life of the community may be adequately represented, and may take their due part in the management of society, a system of household Soviets shall be built up. The CPBSDI was opposed to parliamentarism, in contrast to the views of the newly founded British Socialist Party, which formed the Communist Party of Great Britain, CPGB, in August 1920. The CPBSDI soon dissolved itself into the larger, official Communist Party, but this unity was short-lived. When the leadership of the CPGB proposed that Pankhurst hand over the workers' dreadnought to the party, she revolted. As a result, she was expelled from the CPGB and moved to found the short-lived Communist Workers' Party. By this time she was an adherent of left or council communism. She attended meetings of the Communist International in Russia and Amsterdam, and those of the Italian Socialist Party. She disagreed with Lenin on his advice to work with the British Labour Party and was supportive of left communists such as Anton Pankhurst. In the early 1930s, Pankhurst drifted away from communist politics but remained involved in movements connected with anti-fascism and anti-colonialism. In 1932 she was instrumental in the establishment of the Socialist Workers' National Health Council. She responded to the Italian invasion of Ethiopia by publishing the New Times and Ethiopia News from 1936, and became a supporter of Haile Selassie. She raised funds for Ethiopia's first teaching hospital, and wrote extensively on Ethiopian art and culture, carrying out research that was published in her book Ethiopia, A Cultural History, London, Lalibela House, 1955. From 1936, MI5 monitored Pankhurst's correspondence. In 1940 she wrote to Viscount Swinton, then chairing a committee investigating fifth columnists, and enclosed list of active fascists still at large and of anti-fascists who had been interned. A copy of this letter on MI5's file carries a note in Swinton's handwriting, "I should think a most doubtful source of information." After the post-war liberation of Ethiopia, she became a strong supporter of union between Ethiopia and the former Italian Somaliland, and MI5 continued to follow her activities. In 1948 MI5 considered strategies for muzzling the tiresome Miss Sylvia Pankhurst. Pankhurst became a friend and advisor to the Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie, and in 1956 she moved to Addis Ababa with her son Richard at Haile Selassie's invitation. She then founded a monthly journal, Ethiopia Observer, in which she reported on many aspects of Ethiopian life and development. Pankhurst died in Addis Ababa in 1960, aged 78, and received a full state funeral at which Haile Selassie named her an honorary Ethiopian. She is the only foreigner buried in front of Holy Trinity Cathedral in Addis Ababa, in a section reserved for patriots of the Italian War. Her name and picture and those of 58 other women's suffrage supporters, are on the plinth of the statue of Millicent Fawcett in Parliament Square, London, unveiled in 2018, while a musical about her life entitled Sylvia premiered at the Old Vic in September the same year. Thanks for watching HerStory channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel.